actually, boss, what you were saying wasn't exactly correct? Or is it like very relaxed? When you want to say something, is it very formal or informal? Can you just butt in, or do you have to say, excuse me, can I talk? And how much procedure is inside it? Next, please. Now, to meeting effectiveness. As you can see over here, meetings tend to have a bad reputation among lots of employees. Why? Because if meetings are ineffective, they are a huge waste of time. To give a quick example, once I was part of the student committee in high school, we decided that we needed feedback from the student body. We had a meeting and it took us more than 1 hour just to decide where to put the box, in the front room or in the lunchroom. That was an ineffective meeting. Now, there are many ways to make meetings more effective. The first of them is preparation. You have to know what you're going to meet about. If everyone goes to a meeting and doesn't know what it's about, well, it's a waste of time. The second would be chairmanship. As chairman is a person who heads the meeting. As a chairman, you need to be assertive so you can help direct where the meeting is going. If not, the meeting might just drift. Next, please. Now, there are actually many ways to classify a meeting. There's a lot of divisions. But for this presentation, we shall focus upon scheduled and unscheduled only. Now, according to Allen et al., there are 3 types of meetings that happen within an organization. The first one is cross-departmental. That is, for example, when marketing department and the customer service department meet. Why? Because the marketing often does very irresponsible things, like say, oh, our products have a 10-year warranty, when it's actually only 2. And when it breaks down, who has to deal with it? Customer service. Now, the second one would be weekly departmental. Now, these are more like periodical meetings. Can be like, doesn't even have to be weekly, it can be once every month or twice a year. These are meetings which are more done to do updates, like when teachers meet. Okay, how far is your class going? Oh, how about this student? Is he doing well? The third part about scheduled meetings is brainstorming. These are, for example, focus groups. Over here, people meet to think of ideas and make those ideas better. Now, we will go to unscheduled meetings. Unscheduled meetings don't have a lot of journal writing about it, mainly because they are not very important to organizations and it's hard to track them down because there isn't any documentation. And it can be any type of meeting, well, like for example, coffee break. Or you have this homework, you know that, let's say, Miriam has done the homework, so during break time you go to Miriam and it's like, excuse me, Miriam, can you help me on number 5? It's very unscheduled, and so there's no rules, very informal. And it's very spontaneous as well. Or like a sudden meetup, you just meet someone who you haven't met for years, and you decide to catch up. Now, here's an example. You can see that an unscheduled meeting is, she basically, chances are, just walked into his office and asked him something, and they're very relaxed about it, compared to a scheduled meeting, which is often a lot more formal. There, yeah, that's the difference. So next slide, please. Now, and finally, to relate back to purposes, there are usually 3 main goals of a meeting. Now, keep in mind that these are not mutually exclusive. So one meeting can be all 3 of these or only 2 of these. The first is reconciling conflict. James, can you give me an example of a meeting that is done to reconcile conflict?
Sorry, I didn't catch you. What did you mean?
Okay. Can you give an example of a meeting which is trying to reconcile conflict?
Does it mean reduce the companies?
Yes, within companies, or it can become other organizations as well.
Just like the negotiation between just like two countries.
That can work, yes.
To reduce the such as the tax between the two countries' trade.
Exactly, Mondo. That is something that the United Nations does. Very good, thank you, James. Now, reconciling conflict and also called mediation is when a meeting is done to help clear out problems. And well, not exactly problems, but ongoing conflicts within two bodies. The second one is group decision making. This is done not to solve a problem, but more usually to enact policy. So it's preemptive. What is our policy before the problem comes up? And finally, there is problem solving. This is the type of meeting which is a little bit similar to reconciling conflict, but this happens when the problem is not between two parts of an organization, but an external factor. Okay? And that is the end of the topic. Now, let us go to in conclusion.
National Court in Jakarta has upheld the victory of Joko Widodo in July's presidential elections, rejecting an appeal filed by supporters of defeated candidate Prabowo Subianto. Widodo had won the poll by a 6% margin, but Subianto claimed widespread electoral fraud. Earlier, hundreds of Subianto supporters rallied outside the court ahead of the verdict. Police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowd. Subianto's team said they would accept the ruling of the Constitutional Court, the highest authority in the country.
Well, first I would want to point out that in his BBC interview, he said that he would accept whatever result of the election. That wasn't exactly correct. And even after this, he still tried to sue the Constitutional Court, which doesn't really make sense, but anyway. So, in October 20th, we finally inaugurated our Indonesian president, Joko Widodo. And the conclusion is that throughout the campaign period and also after it, it's very much apparent that the topics that we have discussed are all interrelated. So meeting communication, non-verbal and verbal, and as well as oral, they all build up on each other. A chairman might have to rely on oral communication in order to make sure that the meeting runs smoothly. And upon that, well, that's the end of our presentation. Would you like to show the reference?
Yep. So here's the references list, and yeah, and yeah, we're done. Thank you. Any questions?